Welcome back to Ali, Atrévete a lo Imposible, Season 2, Episode 4. Today we have Kimberly Briseño.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the space. We are in Kim's home. So thank you for allowing us to come and record here. We really appreciate it. A big reason as to why I believe you are a great individual to have is not only your energy and the way you carry yourself, but I think it's the I need to stop saying I think. I know it's the connection that you have with your emotions that I respect a lot. And we'll get into that a bit deeper. But I appreciate your time, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you and share this time and the space. So who is Kim?
Kimberly. Oh, God. Okay. I had to do a lot of thinking when I saw this question. I was like, who am I? Kimberly, I am... Career-wise, I'm a research lab coordinator right now. I've had the job, or this position, actually, I should say that. I've had this position for, in January. It'll be my 4th year. I am also, aside from, like, career-wise, like, I am, I think one of my, like, proudest moments is being a tia. My sister is my best friend, and her kids are also my best friends by that extent. So I'm that one really fun tia that, like, is always doing something. You don't really know what she does for work, but she's always there. Like, she shows up at events. She gets pretty toasty at, like, Thanksgiving. I think that's one of my other proudest moments. There's this term I heard, lover girl. I'm very much a lover girl. I know it's really hard out here in this world, but I think that's, like, one of the things that I do really, really well is just love sometimes, you know. I was talking about it with a friend recently, but I was like, I think that was my purpose on earth, is just to, like, love no matter what. Like, I don't have, like, a career choice. Like, I do what I want when I want, and I work where I want when I want to work. But I think I work so I can have and afford the time and the space to just, like, love authentically, like my friends, my family, and stuff like that, like exes and stuff like that, you know, relationships didn't work out, but I gave love, which is all that matters at the end of the day. But yeah, for the zodiac girlies, I'm a Libra sun, Libra moon, Sag rising.
We got a Libra. We got a zodiac. We have some zodiac girlies on our team.
Oh, I love that. Sometimes I think about doing that, like a little, like, zodiac blog, but that's so much of a time commitment.
It is.
That's too much.
It is. How do you define love?
Ooh. I think love is, I don't think love is a feeling. I think love is a deliberate action, you know? My parents are divorced, and I remember at one point during their marriage, you could tell that both of them had, like, made the decision to, like, no longer love each other. And this was long before they actually, like, divorced. I think it was, like, a year before they actually, like, filed for divorce. But at some point there was, like, a decision that they had made to stop loving each other. And so, like, love isn't only wanting to be with someone when they're good and when they're going through, like, the highs of life. Loving is also a choice you make, like, when your partner can only give you 20%, you know, you make up for it with the rest of the 80%. When your partner does something that, like, annoys you, and they know it annoys you, right? Like, you still make the decision, like, hey, you're annoying, but I'm still gonna be here. There was a certain point where, like, so many, like, built up, like, little things had happened in their marriage that they were like, I don't want to love you, like, you know. And they still care for each other to this day, but there was a point where they're like, I can care for you, but I don't want to continue this anymore. So I think love is a deliberate action. It's a choice that you make. Be there for someone, to respect someone, to care for someone without the expectation that it's going to be returned immediately or returned in the way that you want it, but in the way that they can communicate that love. I think that's what it is to me.
How did you form your definition of love?
I think for me, having immigrant parents, for me, a lot of it was just like in actions. I'm very much like like words are nice, but like actions like really, really do contribute and mean more to me. And I didn't actually like really think about like love like that. I never had been in love, if I'm being honest. Like before my parents like divorced, I'd never really like been in love like romantically like that. I've been in love with platonically. I've been in love with my friends, my family, but I've never been like in love romantically like that. And so they got divorced late when I was like 21. So I think that's when I really became more cognizant about like how I defined love in previous relationships. And that's when I realized I had never been in love with any of my exes, like ever. But I was just like, kind of like clicked one day. Their divorce was finalized the day before my college graduation. That was my graduation present.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, you can.
That's not funny.
It's funny. You can laugh. I laugh. But yeah, it kind of clicked one day, and I was like, I've never been in love with any of my exes, and I had convinced myself that I had loved them and that, you know, what we experienced was like love. And I'm like, nah, dude, that wasn't it. That doesn't connect with me. Doesn't like connect with like my soul or like any of like my core values. Like those experiences were nice. Those were nice times, but that wasn't love.
You know, I've heard someone say as of recent, in our early adulthood, we love how we were loved. So do you think that there holds an influence? And I believe this person was in reference to childhood, teenage years, early adulthood, right? Maybe to put a number to it, maybe before 21. Before, I think around 21, everyone, you know, tries to become a little more independent, maybe move out, move to a new city, or just move out the house. It's a time where someone tries to discover who they are and how they love. So would you say that throughout discovering what love was, that you had to modify your understanding of how you received love and how you were willing to give love, also compared to any experiences when you were younger where you were like, okay, that individual has loved me truly?
I think yes. The way your parents love you really shapes like your love language. And I think as you explore your own identity and collect your own like life experiences, I think you solidify your love language or you modify it in a way, right? Me personally, my preferred love language, like how I like to demonstrate love, because you can demonstrate love and then you can receive love, but they don't have to be the same love language, which is something that I found through, you know, life experiences. I like to demonstrate love through acts of service. So like cooking for people, cooking for partners, cleaning up like spaces. Like I don't feel like it's a chore. I don't feel like it's an obligation like for me as a woman to like clean the house or cook or do all that stuff. I enjoy to do that because it's like, to me, it's like one less thing for your partner to do or worry about, you know? So I like to demonstrate love through acts of service. But on the flip side of that, I don't like when people do things for me. Like, I would rather much do it myself than have someone else do it. I would prefer to receive love through quality time. So literally, like, just keeping me company while I do something, to me, is, like, so profound. And it's, like, such, like, an intimate thing, and I just really love that. But, yeah, like I said, and I think it's really closely linked to, like, your mother. But the way your mother shows you love, kind of is that like that intro, right? You will collect that experience, and you're like, this is how my mom showed me love, and this is how I like to receive love. And then like as you watch your parents like interact with each other, or like you're learning like ways that you want to demonstrate love. And then your own relationships, like every person's different, everyone has a different life experiences again, and so like what works for them might not work for your next partner. And so you kind of build things and you learn, you're like, oh, actually this is something that I'm really good at. This is how I'm really good at demonstrating love.
So giving and receiving. What about self-love?
Ooh, self-love. My love language is quality time. So I'm always with myself. Like no matter who's in the room, I'm always going to be with myself. Like I said, my love language is acts of service. Sometimes I don't like do that for myself, or I'm like, I'll let things pile up. Like when I'm going through moments where I'm not like 100% loving myself, or I'm going through like those like low moments, I'm like realizing like I'm like letting laundry pile up. I'm letting dishes pile up. I haven't like eaten an actual like home cooked meal. Those are things where I'm realizing I'm like, oh, I need to pause and I need to like recalibrate, or just like spend some time to myself with myself, and then refocus and getting back to loving myself.
The reason I ask is because when my parents got divorced, I was 12. And it was a very interesting pivot and change of pace and in life. But I believe that the biggest lesson, it's interesting because kind of going back to love, right? I believe that the biggest lesson my parents' divorce taught me was, if a situation or a relationship is not giving what you need it to give to you or to provide for you, then what do you do? You know, and I believe that their divorce helped me, although it's still something I'm developing now, but helped me learn to prioritize self-love. Because my parents made the decision to leave a relationship in order to pursue their happiness as people and as individuals. And I think it's really interesting because I'm not sure how long this kind of like, when you look at your parents growing up, when you look at your parents, they're like superheroes. At least for me personally, right? I thought that. And not that I don't think that they're superheroes now, yeah. But when I was younger, I always thought that they were like, they could conquer the world. And at the age of 12, I was able to notice, I was given the ability to recognize them as human and as people that feel. And I think that changed a lot of my perspective on different things, right? As I think a divorce tends to do to the younger individuals, and also older, right? It impacts more people. But I think one of the biggest lessons that they give me was check in with yourself and where are you? Especially within our culture, specifically, because at least from my experience, right, my parents grew up, I grew up at a church, and quite a bit of religion involved in our lifestyles. So when my parents chose to get divorced, my father was a pastor at that time.
Oh.
So I felt as though everything that I thought I understood as quote unquote right, everything had been distorted. So it's like, I think that situation made me closer to my mother than I'd ever been, and I still am. And I love that relationship, and I love my mother, and any chance I get, like, I will praise her because she is so strong, and she is such an amazing woman. But I got closer to my mother in this situation because I felt as though, from society's perspective, they had seen it all as a failure. That situation was a failure. My father was a pastor, and now his marriage is ending. So it was really interesting as far as how that affected my perspective on love, but also how it affected my perception on self-love.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
That is. I think one of my favorite questions to ask people sometimes is, at what age were you when your parents got divorced? Some people are like, my parents are still together. And I'm like, awesome, amazing for you.
Yeah.
And then, like, if they're younger, I think it really influences more your identity. Like your like all your introspection, your identity. Like, but I think when you watch your parents get divorced when you're older, I think it affects how you perceive the more intimate relationships like outside of you. So like the most important relationship, like I said, is yourself. So when you're young, it's like you're figuring out who you are. And I'm still figuring out who I was when I was 21, but I think it really altered the way that I interact with the closest relationships outside of me.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's super interesting. Yeah, it's I don't think I've spoken about it in this amount of depth on the podcast itself, but it does influence you, and I think having the ability to acknowledge the influence is very important. And I think that that's not coming until now, and I'm 24 years old, and that's complete transparency. I knew that it affected me in different ways, but I didn't understand the depth, and I'm understanding it now, and where I need to heal, and where there are areas of opportunities for me to grow as a person. So it's yeah, it's interesting how something at that age can affect you 12 years later. But yeah, I mean, they're both great. They're both great people. They have quite a bit of similarities because they dated so young. So they're very similar in certain ways, and in other ways they are not very similar. But I love them both, and they're both great people, and great individuals and contributors to society. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today without both of them. So I think acknowledging that is important too. But aside from that, walk me through a day in the life of Kim.
First thing in the morning, I have my dog Max, so I make sure it's gonna be a long day. Typically my days are long, so I'll try to spend as much time as I can with him. We'll go for like a little walk, early morning walks. Then I come back. I will take care of himself, make sure that he's fed and stuff like that. And then like by feeding him, it reminds me that I need to eat too. So before I had him, I kind of just live life on the edge, and I was like, all right, we'll figure out when I eat next. But now that like I have him, I'm like, okay, like I have to like consciously think about keeping another creature alive, which makes me like, oh, I have to keep myself alive. So I'll do that. Depending on what the needs are for the research lab, my day could take me to Sumter to work on like recruiting schools or talking to teachers and principals. Sometimes it might make me like run like literacy assessments and stuff like that. Sometimes I have to stay in the Lexington 2 area, translating and interpreting for the Spanish-speaking families of the schools we partner with locally. Really just depends on whatever need it is that day or that week, or what's the focus. And then some days a week I work as a server over at a restaurant here in Columbia, and so I have to intentionally come back, make sure I take care of my dog again, take care of myself again in that same space, and then go to my next job and stay and work until sometimes like 11 o'clock at night or midnight, and then come back and then like go through my like 11-step skincare routine. But I do that because sometimes that's like the only form of self-care I've had after like a 12-hour workday.
How do you balance the serving industry is can be tough. I served for 4 months, not very long, but it can be tough and it can be draining, and you can't control how people talk to you. How do you deal with that?
I cry on the walk-in. I will say I wear my emotions on my face, so sometimes people can see when I'm not having like a good day, or I've had a really bad table. I actually had a really bad table last night. And it wasn't even anything I did. It's just that they did not enjoy the food that they had ordered, by the way. And they went from being like really, really nice to me in the beginning to like not even talking to me at the end. Like their friends were talking for them. And I was like, I didn't pick your meal. I didn't cook your meal. I just put it in the system and then had someone else cook it and brought it to you. But they were being really cold. And my first instinct is I walked into the walk-in, the refrigerator, and I just ate a piece of cheese. I cried a little bit, and then I walked back out. I was like, well, I still have to finish my tables right now, so might as well just get through it. I have learned that I cannot control how other people treat me. The only thing I can really do is control how I react to them. Sometimes I react really well, and sometimes I handle it. Other times, like I said, I cry on the walk-in. It is what it is. But yeah.
Releasing the desire to control something that is not within your control is easy to say, but it's super difficult to do. Because, we'll talk about different stories and different experiences and how the shift went. And in my mind, from an outside perspective, I'm like, don't let people control you like that. Like, don't give people too much power. But in the moment, if someone is like super rude to me, or like I'm just doing my job, like I'm just putting this in the system, like, to say that you should react like this versus what it feels like in the moment is difficult. You know what I mean? There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to say, okay, I can't control how this person feels, that how people treat servers is really interesting to me. I think you learn a lot about that person.
Oh, yes. I know people are like, do a coffee date first. I'm like, no, I want to see how you interact with like our server. Like, as a server, I'm like, how do you treat people that are, I don't want to say working for you, but like, providing you a service that's not like typically like highly valued.
You do learn a lot about people.
Oh, so much.
It's important. Also, there's so many things pertaining to the restaurant industry. There's so many things that a server can't control. And people still, I understand sometimes there's frustration. You're hungry, you just want to eat, you just want to go. Maybe it's not a good day for you too. You're just looking to consume something. But at the end of the day, like, what makes you think they're not having the same type of day? You know what I mean? So it's an interesting industry. Do you feel as though it drains you at times?
45% of the time, it is incredibly draining, and I'll complain about it. I'll let one thing happen, and I'll complain about it for my entire shift. But then the other 55%, I think, in the positive interactions I have with like customers, or interactions I have with like my coworkers too. I think without my coworkers, I probably wouldn't stick around that long. Like, I think your work environment really affects how you go about it. I know you said you served for about 4 months. I have been serving. I've been working at the restaurant that I worked at for like over like 2 years. I used to just host, but now I like actually serve, and I've been serving since like July. So yeah, 4 months now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm at my 4 months. And my coworkers really like have been the reason why I'm still sticking around. Otherwise I would have left this job.
So in picking up new habits for yourself, right, such as a skincare routine, that's for me when I got a skincare routine, and I've gotten a bit off of it, but I felt as though I was doing something more so for myself because it's an investment of time. So through activities and routines such as that, how much have you grown or changed from who you are now to who you were as a recent graduate?
Ooh, okay. I think as a recent graduate, one of the words I would always use to describe myself was nice. And I realized how, I hate to say superficial, but it was kind of superficial. Because things that I did that I thought were like nice were actually just like people pleasing tendencies that I had learned through like watching my mom interact with like her exes. Like I watched my mom do these things for people, and I thought, and she would be exhausted. You know, she would always be exhausted doing all these things for other people, and or never being able to say no to people. And I thought that like my mom's a nice person. I should be a nice person too, and just say yes to absolutely everything, which meant that I would have to say no to things that I actually wanted to do. But I was like, I want to be nice though. I don't want anyone to perceive me as like a bitch, you know? And so I had no boundaries. Recently graduated. I had no boundaries. I would never confront people when they hurt my feelings or did things to intentionally hurt me. I would kind of just like bite my tongue, and I'm like, well, I need to get over it. It could be worse. Didn't stand up for myself in work. You know, I would like let old bosses kind of diminish my experience or like kind of make me feel like dumb sometimes. Now I'm a lot more confident in like who I really am, and I don't say that I'm nice anymore. I tell people up front, I'm like, I'm kind of a bitch. And people are like, no, you're nice. And I'm like, no, like I really kind of am. I would like to say things like I'm empathetic, or I'm loving. I try to be altruistic. There's moments where I'm not. But I have a lot firmer boundaries. In my most like recent like relationships as of lately, one of the things that I've really kind of struggled with, like I said, is boundaries. Establishing new boundaries and telling people what my boundaries are too. I can't set up a boundary, not explain it to you, and then get mad when you cross my boundary. I can't allow that because it's just going to be a continuous cycle, right? So now I'm in a point in my life where I'm like telling people, I'm like, hey, that's cool if you want to do that. If you do that, make that decision, I'm going to step away. And that has been like the hardest thing for me to learn. But yeah.
You know, I had a conversation with my therapist, and we were talking about that. It's difficult to step away from something that has great characteristics and great attributes. Any situation or person or idea has great characteristics and great attributes, but it crosses one of your non-negotiables. What do you do? And she said, like, that's going to be the most challenging aspect of it, right? To find something beautiful to find something beautiful and that meets, let's say 4 things off your checklist out of 5. It's amazing. But where does that 5 stand from a priority? Like, from where does it lay within a priority standpoint? And is it a non-negotiable for you? And how do you say, okay, wow, this opportunity or this person or this idea gives me 4 of the 5 things that I'm looking for. What if I don't find someone that'll give me 5 out of 5? So let me stay for 4 out of 5 with you sacrificing one of your non-negotiables. And it's just like, how do you step away from that? You know what I mean? Like it's tough to be able to say no.
I've learned recently myself through therapy and like in talking to other individuals, especially women. I think these are the people I'm having the conversations with. Not that you can't have them with men, but they just don't connect. Is when you think about that, or when I'm like dealing with someone who I view as like a potential romantic interest, but like you said, they hit 4 out of the 5 ones, right? I'm like, I'll settle sometimes in my head, or I used to settle, you know, I'm like, and I realized that I was living in a scarcity mindset. In my head, I'd be like, this is the best I'm going to get. Everyone has problems. Everyone's got issues, and everyone's got their own traumas that they're working through. And like, this is the best that I'm going to get. So I might as well just like settle for this person while I have them here. And in turn, I was like limiting myself, like, cause I was living in a scarcity mindset. So I was limiting myself to like relationships that didn't serve me, jobs that didn't help me, friendships that actually kind of hurt me in a way, because in my head, I'm like, whatever, this is the best I'm going to get in my life. This is it. This is my capacity. And I'm just like, but that, like, that's the hardest thing. And especially, like, I think as, like, a Latina, from such a young age, you're already, like, expected to just, like, whatever, kind of put up with it. You got to do it. You got to do it. Someone's got to do it. Or, like, even, like, watching your parents, like, relationships, you're like, well, in a way, sometimes I felt my parents settled for each other. So I'm just like, I just need to settle because I'm not where I want to be in my life, or I'm at XYZ in age, and I have to do it. I just got to do it. And it was very limiting, and it was very ugly. It was a very ugly feeling, like when you're like sitting there and you're like, I don't actually like this, but I don't want to be like alone either.
Ooh. I agree. And putting that into practice is a true testament to your self-love.
Ooh.
You know, like we say, oh, I love myself, I love this about me. But to walk away when it's 4 out of 5 is the true test to be like,
how much do you value and respect yourself? Ooh.
As a person, right? And once again, it's one of those things that are easier said than done. But that's where you create a 12-step skincare routine. That's where you say, okay, these relationships, these friendships, this job, this opportunity is no longer serving me as a person. To be able to know yourself like that is so important. So I 100% agree with that. And that's something that I'm figuring out and working through now. I by no means have that figured out at all. I'm still trying to figure out what my checklist is. I'm still there, you know. I'm still trying to create.
Adding things, trying to see what I could take off. I'm like, what is negotiable?
Yeah, what is non-negotiable for me? And someone told me that recently. You know, when you're sitting down with people or looking to like make new friends or a relationship or a job, you create a list and you say, what am I looking to get out of this? And how does that opportunity meet my list? And then you operate life with a little more clarity and intentionality and direction because you have your list and you know what you force yourself, not force yourself, you give yourself the opportunity to get to know who you are, to get to know what you value, to get to know what you want to do for the rest of your life and what you're working towards. It helps you narrow down your list and your focus, and it gives you a different level of awareness. But also, and I've said this quite a bit, but intentionality. So it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process.
It's going to change. And like my list right now looks totally different than my list literally a year ago. And I expect it to change again. Probably like in the next 6 months.
I guess a question right there would be, if your list is consistently changing, how do you find a person that is open to, that meets your list right now but doesn't meet your list down the road? I have an idea, but I'm gonna let you answer.
Okay. I think, well, now thinking about it, like I think at the top of my list is someone that is adaptable. And, you know, I think the core values that I have are somewhere on my list, right? So like I said, adaptability. I'm an adaptable person. I need someone that can adapt with me, who's willing to grow, who's willing to change and do things, even sometimes when I don't want to do those things. That is such a tough question, actually. I would like to think that my list doesn't vary as much in terms of like the core values and the things that are like the truest to my own identity. I think when I think of the things that change on my list, at the top of my list, like a year ago, was a man that's over 6'3". That has very much changed. That has very much changed. Like little superficial, fickle things like that, or things that change for me, which makes me also realize I need to do a little more like introspection if the superficial stuff is at the top of the list.
I hear you. hear you. It's and to allow yourself that flexibility to evolve is so important. To allow your flexibility to go out, experience, learn, take the lessons, and keep going. Because you deserve that. You owe that. You owe that to yourself. You owe it to yourself to be happy. You owe it to yourself to find peace. You owe it to yourself to have a great job that contributes to your growth as a person, great friends, great relationships with your family. It's critical, and who you hang out with and who you give your time to and your energy is so important, because your energy and your time is so precious always. So to ever think that it's not, to reduce your value, it's just not the move at all, because you, at least in my experiences, you will drain yourself, and then what do you do? Where I know this episode has been a little bit more on the emotional side of things, so this question I'll leave it open to your interpretation of how you want to approach it and how you want to answer it. But what is in store for you in the future?
In the future, I guess in terms of like the most tangible things, that's where I'm currently thinking right now. I am in the process of like making a career change. I'm trying to get my like project management like certification stuff. I do want to do I like what I do. I tell people what to do, and I realize I'm really good at it. So I kind of want to continue that avenue through like I think I do what I do really well is because like I enjoy being a leader, and I enjoy actually mentoring people and like getting to know them for who they are, and then adapting how I interact with them to make them feel like supported and excited to do the work that we do. It's draining. I do not live to work. I work so I can live, right? And I want people to be able to come into their place of work and be excited about doing it, but then also being like, all right, time to clock out, time to like live my actual life, and making sure that this isn't, I had draining experiences and I don't want them to have that same kind of experience. I'm trying to be for them what I wish I had when I was younger, So most tangible things for me right now would be a career change. I am looking at moving to a new city. Like I said, I've been in Colombia for almost 10 years now, and I love Colombia. It's given me a lot of like really amazing experiences, a lot of amazing friendships and relationships. And it's helped me develop the most as a woman that I want to be. But I kind of feel like I am hitting a wall or a plateau in terms of my growth, and I'm kind of ready to see what else life has in store for me. And a move seems like such a big thing, especially when you've been here for so long. But worst case scenario, it's just a year. It's just like not even a full year. It could be 6 months of my life, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go back. Or maybe this was actually not the opportunity I thought it was. Maybe the grass really isn't that green. Time to go back.
Allowing yourself that flexibility to pivot. So important.
And the grace to forgive yourself when it doesn't work out the way you think it does.
Yeah, and I'm not even gonna add to that, because I agree. I 100% agree. To not perceive yourself as a failure when you change and you adapt and you grow and you realize that Colombia has been great, but maybe it's time for a change. And then you go to a change. Maybe that's not for you either. And you come back. You're like, you know what? I like Colombia. And that's perfectly okay. That is part of the journey. That is part of the process. And you will continue to form, the woman that you want to become. And it'll be amazing. And I'm excited for your future. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the vulnerability in talking about emotions. I know it's sometimes tough to open up about things like that. At least I'm pretty much an open book, but it is tough, to talk about things that I don't know, like a parent's divorce for me is pretty personal and pretty vulnerable, but I feel as though you as a person always permit that space, and that is very special.
Thank you.
That is so incredibly special. So I really appreciate our time together and the energy spent together. This is Kimberly Briseño, Ali, Atrévete a lo Imposible, Season 2, Episode 4. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Ali. Our episodes are available on YouTube and Spotify. Visit ali.club to learn more about our mission, our team, and our guests. Follow us on social media, and as always, atrévete a lo imposible.